So now let's go straight to our thing, which is really 5 mistakes entrepreneurs make. If you look at statistics, statistics show that 10% of startups in the US will fail in the first year. And within the next 5 years, about 70% are going to fail. And why do they fail? Let me see, there is kind of an echo coming from the back. No, that one. That one. Yeah. I am with you guys. I am really with you. Just give me 1 minute. Yes. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page and making these things work. Please give me 1 minute. Just 1 minute and we will be there. Perfect. 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 So if you look at statistics, 70% of businesses fail startups fail within the first year, within the first 5 years. There are reasons for that. And we are going to talk about these reasons today. I am asking you guys, I said this was going to be interactive, so I need you guys to post your questions online. If you're here and you've been in business more than 5 years, it means you are a champion. You're certainly doing certain things right. But there is much more for us to learn. There is much more for us to learn so that we can meet those goals. I am going to show you where vigilance is critical, so we build our own business, so you can build your own business, where you have to be vigilant, okay? When a child is born, when a child is born, that child learns how to walk. And that child is most fragile when it's still a baby, when it's still a child. So we have to hold that child and help that child to work. That is the same with a business. When you start a business, it is most fragile at the beginning of the business. What we need to do is to invest, to make sure that we put a lot of investment to take care of that baby that we just created for it to stand. So that synonym, that analogy between the child when a child is born and a business startup is exactly the same. That is why we have to be very, very attentive when we start up a business. At times, we celebrate successes too soon. We have to take our time before we do these things. So the first thing I'm going to say, number one thing that businesses make, one common mistake that entrepreneurs make, and which I see all the time, is cash flow management. Most businesses, as I say this is the most important for businesses. Lack of understanding of actual revenue. If you ask a business, most entrepreneurs, they have a mixed up between the revenue that they get from the business and what is actually their profit. They don't understand that there is something called cost of goods. There are certain expenses that you have to take into consideration. And then most owners don't even know that they have to pay themselves. They believe that the money they are getting from the business is part of their expense. It's just their money to spend. And generally, like I said before, we basically are celebrating successes too soon. So in business, there is something that you have to have knowledge of management of cash flow. Most entrepreneurs, I see about 90% of businesses fail because of lack of cash flow. So when you start a business, one of the key things that you know is that there's going to be investment in that business. That business doesn't have, and especially for smaller businesses, where you don't even have, that business doesn't have credit yet. You have to get money. You have to look for sources of investment in that company. And most of the times, those things that we have to really invest in, we cannot invest in because of lack of cash flow. So cash flow, when you start making money in a business, keep the cash because you will need it. Reinvest that money in the business. Pay yourself a salary. Because if you pay yourself a salary and you understand that I am paying myself for this work, and generally one of the problems that I see with even those who pay themselves salaries is that they tend to overvalue themselves. So they overvalue themselves and then they pay themselves more than they are required to, more than the company is making. And before you know it, you've sucked out all the cash out of the business. And even though the market is there, the business is booming, you require to invest so that you can do those things. You don't have money no more. So cash management is number one thing. And when you're thinking about cash management, you have to have the tools to be able to manage cash. You cannot be a business person and say that, oh, I don't know accounting. I don't like maths. I don't like additions. You have to know how to do those things. They are very, very critical. And you cannot rely on the third party for that. You need to be able to know, what is my cost per unit? What is the cost of producing this item? What is the margin that I'm getting on any item that I'm selling? What is the total that I've made for a period of time? That is very important, because that determines how much cash is available for you to spend and how much cash is available for the third party. I've seen businesses where the owners, they just ask for money as they don't have any process in place. They don't have any procedures in place. The brother of the owner will just come to the business and say he needs money, and the money will be given out. And then one of the biggest problems of our businesses is ourselves, the owners of businesses. They tend to give discounts so often to other people. Every time somebody comes to your office and then he complains to a staff and tells him, oh, this business is, oh, the staff will tell him that, okay, we paid this for maybe $100 or maybe $1,000. And then they will be looking for the owner. When they come to the owner, okay, you just turn and then say, okay, give me $500. You just killed your business. Because the reason you gave that price of $1,000 was because you had made some analysis and you arrived at that price. Pricing is key. And most of the time, we don't even have a price structure. Because we don't know when somebody asks for certain things that you don't normally do, or even a service that you provide. You don't have a price structure that is based on detailed analysis. So it is so important. And I talk about cash management because I know that 90% of business failures is because of cash flow. So you have to manage cash adequately. And you have to have cash in the business before you can, so that you can take advantage of opportunities. And then before you start celebrating, make sure you have really gotten to that point where you celebrate. I don't say we don't have to celebrate. We have to celebrate our successes. But let's not suck out all the cash out of the business, and before you know it, all opportunities, you cannot even pay your staff, you cannot even buy for certain supplies in the company, and before you know it, you're winding up just because you had the money, you had the market, you had everything, but you didn't have the cash flow. And cash flow becomes even more important because you, as a solopreneur who starts a business, you really don't have all those available sources of financing. Or maybe even if you have them, most people don't even know how to do them. That's another one we'll talk about. So cash management is always the number one. And that is 90% of businesses that fail is because of cash flow. That's number one. Number two, common mistakes that small businesses make is systems. We are in a world that is rapidly changing, rapidly, and I say this with a lot of emphasis. Businesses are rapidly changing. I think this is generally we think having proper systems is expensive, and this is very common. I talk to a lot of people. They have a business. They just think, okay, having that system is expensive. Even having an accounting system is expensive. How can you do a business you don't have an accounting system? How are you going to set your prices? How are you going to bill people? How are you going to receive payments? It is just, if you don't make the process of billing people as easy as possible in a business, the process of receiving cash as easy as possible. There are many times we do businesses and then we ask our people, we go asking our people, there are many times you do a transaction with a person and then he's looking for pay. And then you tell him, how am I going to pay? He tells you, I only do Zelle. I only do Cash App. But you should have all the processes of making me pay easily. And I'm like, okay, I don't do Cash App. I don't do Zelle. I have a system. You send me a bill and I pay by credit card. I pay by debit card. Those things, they are not expensive. They help you easily collect the cash and have the cash flow in the business. You cannot be selling items and then it takes you a week, a month to get collection just because your collection system is poor. So you have to invest in system. Number two is an accounting system. And this is still under system. You have to have an accounting system that is able, all your expenses. I'm a tax professional. And one of the things I see all the time with people who have tax resolution issues is what? Is they have problems, they don't have accounting systems. You have a business that's running, you've been running that business for a couple of years, and then you don't have an accounting system. Then you have employees, you ask them what is the price of something, they don't even know the prices because you don't know how to determine those prices. So it's so important. I mean, one of the things that we got from Brad yesterday, for those who were there, Brad said that you must do it once and get income forever. The only way you can do something once and get income forever is if you have a system in place. And then you get a system in place so that any person who is working in that business is able to just go in there and do the same thing without any changes. If I were to ask you today that, if I were to ask you to go in to tell me the price of a particular thing, everybody within the company should be telling you the same thing. So a system allows you to adapt to changes, to be able to move, to be able to change with technology. Many of us do not even have, I talked about accounting system. We are running our business on kind of blindly. We don't understand these things. It's so important that we have this thing. Fast food chains I see in America, they have implemented so much in system. Every business only grows with a system. If you don't have a system in place, you don't have a business. Because the only time you have a business is when you are able to sleep and then the business is running. If you are the only one who needs to be there before the business can function, before there's any revenue, then you don't have a business. You only have something. You're just a solopreneur and then you keep doing the same things over and over. You're not growing your business. You're not working on the business. You keep working in the business. And that job for working in the business is not for you. It's for the manager. It's for the workers in the business. They are the ones who work in the business. Your job is to go out there and do those things that are basically going to enhance the business. And for you to do that, you must have a system in place that allows the people to do the work. And you have to invest in it. So that's number two. Number three, and I see this all the time again. Number three is something called laws and regulations. Laws and regulations. This is, I can't emphasize this enough. Most people just don't understand. You're getting into an industry, you don't understand how the industry works. You don't understand the taxation of this industry. Tax is the most, it's the most significant expense of a businessman. And you must understand, I'm not saying that anybody becomes a tax expert, but you must understand the taxation. I've seen businesses, they start up, and then there's an accountant who is just, you take your account, you provide information at the end of the year to some tax preparer to prepare your taxes. And all they do, they put the information, and before you know it, a business that just started, that's not making any money, they have to pay taxes. Because they don't understand. You don't even understand what type of credits are available to that type of business. You don't even understand what types of rules apply to a startup business which is making losses. You don't understand, and before you know it, I take my experience. There's a small business I started, and then before I started it out of here. It's out there in my country. And what happened is that I have somebody who's running that business. And then all of a sudden, because it's a small business I just started, all of a sudden, they tell me, les impôts. Les impôts, I say, what is it? What are they saying? They say we have to pay, the equivalent of about $6,000. How do you pay $6,000 on a business that hasn't started yet? And then unfortunately, I'm somebody who understands these things. When I'm like, okay, let me talk to the person who is coming for the $6,000. And before you know it, there's really nothing there. But they had already prepared their tax return. They called DSM and all one and said you had to pay $6,000. I said that was nonsense. And most of our small businesses, business owners, they are falling into this and they're paying significant amounts of money to the government. They are not taking advantage of the government facilities that are available. There are credits for you when you invest in certain industries. You have to know that those credits are there. Because that's what enhances your business. You can take loans, you can take funds, you can take grants. All those things are available depending on the sector you're working in. So before you go into the business, study the business, know the rules and know the laws and regulations. Because those are things that will help you kind of sustain the business have access to the required finances that you have to build the business with. And also, access to capital may also be available for, like I said before, most people don't even want to pay the price. Paying the price means you have to learn. There is no way you can start a business and then you think you know it all. You must learn. You must learn. And laws and regulations are one of the first things you want to learn when you start a business. Number three is adapting to changes. And these are my own. And I know some of you have questions that you're posting on the floor, telling us some of the challenges you have. But adapting to changes is one of the very critical items that I have for businesses. I have seen entrepreneurs who get started on plans that are almost deficient. I mean, we went through the pandemic of recent. I mean, there were so many creators, there were so many businesses that were created, sustainable businesses on the basis of business plans that were related only to the pandemic. During the pandemic, for example, we had areas where there was a lot of value. People who were doing healthcare staffing, they made a lot of money coming from that business. People who were in transportation, they make a whole lot of money. There were so many people in healthcare whose incomes were doubled, practically tripled, because that was a circumstantial thing. And when you go at that time and you prepare a business plan based on that circumstance, I have businesses who went into petroleum, who went into industry, they went into some sort of refinery business and things like that. There were people who go into these various businesses and they are based on business plans that are based on the current circumstance of the market. When you are building a business, the plan has to be sustainable. It has to be long term. If you are in a time where prices have evolved, they've skyrocketed, there's inflation, you cannot be basing your projections on those prices. You have to scale your projections to the normal market circumstances, and those should be exceptional cases. Because on that basis, you can still make a profit regardless of the circumstances in which you are. So it's so important that you adapt to changes. And I say this with technology as well. I see that in the technology industry. There are lots and lots of people who get into business. I'll take my brother. I have my brother, one of my cousins. He is in the, he was in charge, he was doing this, how do you call it? He's a radio, he used to be a radio technician. He will be fixing radios, TVs, and things like that. But that's an industry which evolves very, very quickly. If you don't follow technology, before you know it, you have lenses that are completely different. They are so sophisticated and things like that. And before he knew it, my brother was out of business. And he was out of business not because he didn't follow the changes of time. He didn't train in those things that were coming forward. The only reason we get people like Elon Musk making what they are making today is because they have followed time. Elon Musk is always ahead of everybody. He's always thinking futuristically. He's always thinking. He follows the time, and people have to follow him. If you are able to adapt to changes, or maybe even be somebody who is running ahead of time, people follow you. You must not stand still. You must not look at a particular circumstance and think that a business is going to sustain. I just took the example of the pandemic. Most businesses folded during the pandemic because prices changed, because there were price changes, because the cost of certain items grew. If the cost of an item of your input is gone up, you increase the price of the product. You cannot just say, oh, because these things have gone on so badly, I'm going to close the business. You take bad decisions based on certain circumstances and not based on the understanding of the environment and knowing that those things are going to change. So it's important that we adapt to changes. That is very important. Another one, my number 5 is really important, is setting realistic goals. Most of us don't set realistic goals when we go into businesses. We don't. If the business plan, if all business plans were to come through, then being a billionaire would be nothing extraordinary. Because generally, when we make business plans, and I see that all the time, people are very optimistic on their business plans. They are projecting on making more money than on having a high costs. When you prepare a business plan, the first thing you have to be very not pessimistic. You have to be what's the term? A business plan needs to be conservative. A business plan needs to be, I mean, you cannot make a business plan and be just optimistic about the market. This is something that you have to be on the downside on the incomes. You have to not set goals and say, okay, I'm going to sell this baby because I'm selling it now for $10. It's always going to sell for $10. You have to look, are we in a buffer market? If we are in a buffer market, then you basically have to think about, oh, maybe that price is a little bit inflated. And I need to make sure that these costs that are low right now, there might be circumstances that will increase the price. Let your business plan be conservative. It should not be something, because again, like I said, if business plans were to come true all the time, and knowing what I see with business plans, then being a billionaire or a millionaire would just be nothing extraordinary, because everybody would just meet what they had anticipated. Many entrepreneurs go into new ventures planning astronomical returns. They do plan astronomical returns, and they start living based on those expectations. And when you start doing that, then that is a recipe for disaster. You must never, yes, and then the other thing is, most never even get the business off the ground. You have not even gotten the business off the ground, but you have all these astronomical expectations. You're already living the dream, whereas you've not. Most businesses, and I will tell you this, most businesses, it takes you at least 5 to 10 years before you really become a business, before you become sustainable. If you are not ready, if you are a short-term person, then business is not for you. Business is for people who can sustain. Who can sustain. A business becomes a business. When you are 15 to 20 years down in the business, then you are a businessman. You have something to say about business. And whenever you are setting goals for your business, they have to be smart goals. Smart means they have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be accountable, and they have to be realistic, and they have to be what? They have to be realistic, and they have to be time bound. That's what we are all taught in business school. There are so many things we are not taught in business school, but this is one of those that we are taught in business school. When you are setting objectives for your business, make sure they are smart objectives. Because we see that a lot where businesses just go in there and they don't set any goals at all. And before you know it, they are out of the business because the goals were not smart and we started living the dream too soon. So those are the five reasons, the 5 common mistakes that people make in business. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, if you have other things that you want to put in here, we are available for that. We'll talk to you about that. Send us your questions. Go to our website, write down questions, send us as many information as you want so that we can answer some of these questions. And the reason I brought this topic is because we are engaging into very, very specific trainings for business, small businesses. I don't stand here to say I am the guru of this, but we're bringing together smart people who have been there, who have done it, who have succeeded, people like the Brads that we brought yesterday. We are bringing people like them who are multi-millionaires in their own spheres, who have built multi-businesses and taken them public. People who have been there, done it, and they have failed, they have succeeded. Because many times when we fail once, we just quit. We are bringing these people into so many. We are going to be making a series of conferences, and that is the reason we're talking about this, because we know that we have the processes to help you build. And I'll tell you, for those who were there yesterday, there are programs to help your businesses. Join those programs. It is not, building a business is not cheap. If someone tells you that, oh, you can just make it by being cheap, then everybody will be a billionaire or a millionaire. But there is a process we have to learn. We have to we have to pull our sleeves and learn and be ready to pay the price. There's a price related to doing business, and we must all pay that price. I think that was all I had for today. I hope the message went through. I hope the message that we're trying to pass across went through, that we were able to learn certain things out of this. And I want to urge you, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook. We are there. Follow us on LinkedIn. We are here for a reason. The reason we do all of this, we do them basically so that we can empower our communities. We do them so that everybody who has an objective